All right, real quick and dirty falling tutorial. I'm gonna take down this tree. It's, I don't know, barely over wrist size. I'm gonna look at the tree and look up at the canopy up there. It looks like it's gonna go over this way. Dog's gonna have to move. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut about a third of the way in here. I'm gonna do a flat cut first and then an angled cut up from below. That makes a Humboldt notch. You can come down from above too, it doesn't matter. As long as you create a notch about a third to a half of the thickness of the tree. Keeping in mind, you want to have your saw perpendicular to the way it's going to fall. On this saw here, I've got this little black line that, well, it used to be black. Anyway, I got that little line that I can use as a sight. It's perpendicular to my bar. This hinge that I create with that notch and the back cut later on will dictate which way the tree falls. Okay, so I got my first cut in. If I set my saw in there and look down, you can see that I'm sighted over that way. If I were to cut in from the back now, I'm just gonna pinch this hinge is gonna break and then I have no control. I want this hinge to survive the whole way down. So I'll make my second cut. As you can see now, we have this notch. If you look at it, there's no Dutchman. Dutchman is when one of my cuts overlaps the other. That's bad. You can use that to aim a tree in specific circumstances, but in general, you don't want that. This is very much an open face. You don't have to make it that open, but this will let us really aim it. So now, I don't want to be straight behind this in case it barber chairs and splits open. I want to be either 45 degrees one way or the other. In this case, uphill, because I've got my nice escape route here and stuff tends to fall downhill. Cedar's going to have to move. Come here, come on. Cedar. Anyways, so when I cut in, I don't want to cut in really high up or really far down on the tree. I want to cut in either level or slightly above. What that does is that prevents me overshooting and severing all the fibers that hold my hinge together. I also don't want to come down on an angle. The reason for that is it doesn't do what people think it does. It doesn't make it more difficult for the tree to fall backwards. It actually makes it easier due to the leverage involved. Give it a try with the folding saw on a small sapling. But angled back cuts are slow also because you're going more with the grain instead of against the grain. Chainsaws are really slow at ripping. They're really fast at cross cutting. So anytime I can cross cut, I want to cross cut. All right. The other thing to watch is I don't want to come at my hinge crooked. I want to have it fairly even. If I leave one side, like the uphill side towards me here, thicker, it's going to pull my tree that way. Likewise, if I leave the downhill side thicker, it's going to pull my tree that way. I don't want to do that. I just want it to go straight over. So I'll cut in straight, maybe, I don't know, 3/8, half an inch above that hinge. Another thing to watch is doing this with the saw isn't great. A good saw will be set up to be level and balanced. If you put your middle finger in the middle of the saw here, oftentimes there's a line to mark the balance point. You won't have any left-right variation. All right, so I cut it really slow there, giving the tree time to move. I can see it falling now, so I'm gonna get out my escape route. And it's getting hung up in the branches there. That's all right. At this point, because it's so small, I can give it a little shimmy and down it comes. Just like that. Let's look at the hinge now. So as you can see, I did accidentally wind up leaving my top side just a little bit higher. I wish I had swung it away from that branch slightly more. The issue is a finger-sized branch is very weak, but on a long lever like a 20-foot tree, a finger-sized branch has a lot of power. But you can see here that, yeah, hinge worked out okay. Not too shabby. I left a high stump because frankly it's easier to video, but I'm gonna cut this off down lower and clean things up that way. When you're cutting stumps like this, you can't do a hinge that's a third to a halfway through. It's gonna pinch your barks, it'll rock back. If you're gonna do a notch, you gotta go most of the way through because there's so little weight to throw them over. Okay, little kickback hazard, that thing there is in the way. So we're gonna move that. You see how that notch where I cut from the top didn't fly out on its own? I like to have gravity drop them out, so I use Humboldts a lot. In this case though, I want a nice flat stump. You can see I'm most of the way in there. I left a bit of a Dutchman, so I can clean that up, I suppose. There we go. No Dutchman in there now. I'll cut from the back and this will drop over. Except I'm gonna do it from the uphill side. Doesn't matter on this tree because it's small, but on a big one it would, because that is gonna want to roll as soon as it hits the ground. There you go. Oh, hey, one last tip. When you're cutting all this little whippy stuff, if you hold your chainsaw flat like that, it'll tend to get caught in the chain. Leave a bit of an angle and kind of peck at it, like this. It'll just keep your chain from flying off as much. Bigger stuff, obviously, have to go sideways. It's just the really fine stuff that's hard.